What's up guys, my name is Tetos and in this video I'm going to tell you how to play Alistar like Gorilla. It's good to be back. But before we can get started, I want to tell you that I reduced a lot of the pre-game stuff except for the game plan. So runes, masteries, etc. they are quite a lot shorter, but the game plan, combos, key factors, laning and team fights and stuff like that, they are still the same and they are the main focus now of the video. So I hope you enjoy, and as always, let's get right into it. For summoner spells you have to choose between Ignite and Exhaust, and Gorilla mainly plays with Ignite but sometimes gets Exhaust if there are just too many assassins or 80 base champions on the enemy team. Something that's worth mentioning for runes is that Gorilla likes to run mana regeneration runes in his rune pages. Gorilla is always running 0, 18 and 12 masteries on Alistar, focusing on the CDR and Windspeaker's Blessing instead of stacking deep into the defense tree. This means that he will sometimes also switch between Tough Skin or Explorer, because both are actually pretty good on Alistar. After maxing his ultimate, Gorilla usually goes for the E or Q ability. Actually, he primarily goes for the E ability or just puts points into both E and Q. Of course, if you're against a very poke-heavy team, then you want to max the E first, otherwise the Q works as well, but he actually uses the E a lot, as you will see later on in the guide. For items, Gorilla always starts with standard Relic Shield, then rushes Swiftness Boots into Sightstone, Refillable Potion, Pink Wards and the Oracle Lance. Face of the Mountain, Frozen Heart and Locket of the Iron Solari are core items on his Alistar build. Let's talk about the game plan on Alistar. First off, the E ability is key to stay healthy and push the wave easier into the enemy turret, because then if you set up wards properly, it allows you to set up for some very nice dives and ganks on even under the enemy turret. Now, if that is not possible, you push the wave up and then roam to mid or help the jungle, because that can also be very fatal and can put your team ahead and snowball, of course. Then applying pressure can also be done by faking backing or roaming, which is something that not many supports like to do. They just stay in lane or roam, but they don't really fake it. Now, W and Q combo, of course, headbutt pulverize combo is key throughout the game, early game, mid game, late game, to land and to perfect and never miss, because that is just very, very silly. And looks silly, and Gorilla actually never misses this combo. I've watched a couple of his games and he never missed the combo a single time. Now, sometimes of course you don't want to all in but simply stay sustained with the E, but don't forget that the ultimate you're using to tank damage, tank more damage, will break CC, so you can use it to counter engage, which is something that Gorilla does sometimes when he gets caught by, or caught, quote unquote, by a hook or by a CC, then he will just use the ultimate to cleanse the CC part and then counter engage with WQ, Flash Q, or Q Flash rather combo, and then the team fight will be much easier for the team if they can follow up. Now, of course, in the late game it's very important to evaluate every situation and decide if you want to peel or initiate, because sometimes if you initiate and you don't have the W and Q for peeling and your carries will just die if the enemies dive and if they're ahead. But sometimes a good initiation on 2 to 3 people, especially on the key targets, can really win you a fight hard. Let's talk about some Alistar combos where timing is always key, because if you don't time it correctly then you will mess up and knock the targets away. As in this headbutt pulverize combo, you want to pulverize on your way to the target, not when you're actually hitting the target, because then it will simply get thrown away. Next up we have the Flash Q or Q Flash combo. Actually, you can use the Q first and during the cast time flash into a direction, so the cast time gets kind of cancelled, and also if you flash first then the enemies can react easier. Now, let's talk about the Flash WQ combo. It's simply used to extend the range of the WQ combo, because sometimes you're simply not in headbutt range, but with the Flash, of course, that's easy to do, and then can get some very nice initiations going on. There were some pretty common combos, but there's also the WQ and Flash combo, which is not used all the time, it's very situational. Basically, let's say you're in the mid lane, and there is the enemy Braum, enemy Caitlyn and Orianna standing there. Now, any frontliner works basically instead of Braum, but they will of course try to tank most of the damage or body block. And then, if you're Alistar, you don't have to flash anywhere to get the headbutt off, but you can headbutt the tank into the backline and then follow up with the Pulverize and Flash combo to get a knockup on all targets, preferably. And then, especially if you have some AoE based champions on your side, like Ezreal or Victor, they can follow up very nicely with their Gravity Field, their lasers, of course True-Shot Barrage, ultimates. Those work very well in conjunction, and that will allow you to win some team fights easier. Let's talk about the laning phase for Alistar. First up we have the defensive standard early ward for countering invades and counter jungling basically. You want to help your jungler clear the first camp, that's usually Cromp or Krug, but of course sometimes even blue buff or red buff. Anyway, the E spell will be used here, or can be used here, to help heal the jungle a little bit, because the E spell, as you will see later on as well, I already mentioned it actually, it's used a lot in Gorilla's gameplay. For example, this is no rare sight that he just stands back and just heals non-stop all day, uses the relic shield charges of course, but he doesn't use Q, no W, just heal all day. So of course if you do this and you push the mini-wave up, you want to ward and protect your flanks, because then if you push the mini-wave up correctly, you can then initiate some nice dives, especially with the jungler's help. So even as early as level 3 or level 4, you can then use something like a WQ combo, for example, or simple Q spell usage, and then get some nice kills like this. So it really helps to, of course, get the jungler's help, but even without him, in 2v2 scenarios, you can just simply dive in before you get your ultimate, because many people don't even do that, they just wait for the ultimate or don't do it at all. Diving is actually very good to do and easy to do on Alistar if you have the backup damage. But even if you're not diving, sometimes the going in doesn't work, just have to stay back and sustain, because as you can see here, the Kalista doesn't burst that well and she can't really do that much. Now, you also have to adapt your playstyle. If you see that mid lane is in trouble, or there are more people there, or the support is missing in action, then you can definitely pay a visit to mid lane and help protect him or her against incoming ganks. Of course, when you're roaming to top lane, that also sometimes happens, you can support your top laner, which not many people do, by split pushing and putting down these wards. If you're backing anyway, you will get the charges back for your sidestone anyway. A final tip for all lonely supports who want to make their AD carry fall in love with them is to freeze the wave when it is about to hit the turret, tank the damage yourself, heal back up later, and allow them to CS more effectively and basically get them more gold this way. Let's look at some teamfights together. First up, how to follow up on your LCCs. Like the Rexa knockup, you can follow up with the nice pulverized flash combo. 3 people knocked up all the time, makes for very easy fights. Now, same for being trigger happy. When the Elise Cocoon lands here, he goes in without hesitation, which is very important on Alistar. For some longer clips, we can look at this Baron teamfight here, where you can see that he goes in with the ultimate, takes a lot of damage, then goes in once more with the Kalista ultimate, and actually uses the flash Q combo to knock up 2 priority targets, then goes back out while they are knocked up to save his own life. And of course, if you're still running around there without your spells, then that's not really useful and you will probably die for no reason. Lastly, we have this very nice engage, but if you pay close attention to what happened, you can see that he actually knocked the chase away. Otherwise, it would be a perfect 3-man knockup on priority targets, and stuff like this really helps to carry fights, and they even came back from this deficit even though they already had their Nexus turrets destroyed. Very, very amazing gameplay here, and very nice comboing, basically what I'm trying to say here. For the key factors, I'm going back to my E point once more, my E bullet point for the game plan. You can really see here that he never uses anything but the heal ability. We're 3 minutes into the game, nothing yet, just the E, even no other skill points used yet. But even 6 minutes into the game, believe me, he only used the heal ability, nothing else. At 9 minutes, it's the first time he does anything else but spamming E for whatever reason. WQ combo. This is the cherry on the cake. Little quick tip right here, if you get caught, you can use a W also to move away from the enemies, especially if you have some creeps standing around, you can then headbutt to them to get some distance between you and your enemies. When playing the cow, you like to dive a lot and hard. Simply go in with the WQ combo, then wait for allies to follow up with their CC and nuke the enemy as fast as possible. Of course, pull back in time to not die to the turret. If you pull it off correctly, it can look something like this. Can done actually continuously, especially with the ultimate still up, you can tank a lot of turret damage and CC abilities and whatever, because Alistar is just one of the best diving champions actually in the game. Now, if you do it not correctly, not in the best way, it can look something like this, for example, when the communication is kinda off, because you pop the ultimate, he gets thrown in again, but it isn't really necessary because the ultimate from Kalista can actually save Alistar from diving, because it of course pulls her to him, and this is the reason why, for example, Alistar dies in this clip and even has to blow flash. Knowing your spell ranges and mana cost is very crucial to playing Alistar, because those are very high cooldown and high mana cost, but landing them correctly can really help you to get back into games that are otherwise impossible to win. Also, the tankiness, of course, from the ultimate helps, and body blocking also as with the tank, but the combos are a key factor. I want to highlight it once more, that if you use it correctly most of the time or multiple times in a fight, in a single fight, it really helps to CC and lock down multiple enemies and really helps to carry fights. So Alistar is a champion that can carry team fights really well. Laning phase, not that much sometimes, but team fights are very easy to play if you have your ultimate up at least. During this Baron fight you can really see how important it is to conserve mana sometimes, because you don't have a lot and using your abilities can really burn through your mana pool, especially ultimate, Q and W. So here it just saves everything instead of healing for seemingly no reason or little reason, for the, of course, ultimate to tank more damage and knock up. Always look for the enemy map movements, because it is your duty as a support Alistar to help your team and roam around the map to, for example, help them not being in the minority all the time, because it's very frustrating, for example, if you're playing mid lane or top lane and the enemies are always grouping up on you and the support is even there but the ally support is not there. So that is something to keep in mind, because even if you give up some kills, maybe you can basically do a little bit of damage control here and there to basically make the enemy team snowball less. Even if you ward correctly and nicely, you can still overextend, so just putting a ward on will not save your life at all times. This clip shows just that, because Kenred and Twisted Fate die here simply because they overextended. Even though they had a ward there, they couldn't react in time, and basically Alistar was too fast for them. Everybody is greedy in League of Legends, and Alistar can help to capitalize on those greedy mistakes. So you want to hold on to your ultimate in these cases for a long time, and then if you have a couple of hundred health left, pop it, tank a lot of damage and get tanky unexpectedly, and then your allies can sometimes chase the enemies and follow up with kills. Kalista even got some assists this way. I mentioned earlier that the ultimate usage itself is pretty important, because you can break CC, you can tank a lot of damage, you can bait, get a lot of stuff with it, but it's important to know when to not pop it, because if you had like 200 health or so, popping it doesn't really do anything, especially if the enemy team has Ignite, because the true damage will just burn through your health. And if you don't have it in a later fight, as you can see here, you will sometimes really be very squishy. Without the ultimate, without the items, you're not a tank at all, and you will definitely go down very fast. Please remember that sometimes peeling is way more important than just going in recklessly. For example, headbutting someone away can really save lives. Let's take a look at the game plan once more. You guys know the drill by now, I guess, that this is my summary part kind of, and it's just here to remind you of every bullet point and what you just saw, to combine the two and hopefully get a good idea on how to play Alistar in your games. You see this shit? That's my Crocodile Dundee! Alright, welcome to the end screen. I hope you had a great start into the new year so far, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, thanks for liking and sharing this video. On the right hand side, it's still the same even after all this time. There is a link to the previous Play Like a Pro episode from October 2015 on how to play Riven like Smab from the Rocks Tigers now. And also, of course, there's still a playlist down below to find every single episode I've made so far. Announcement time! If you're still watching this, I'm gonna be in Japan for the next 2 weeks roughly, so don't expect any videos. However, after that I want to work on more videos more regularly, because of course that's just disgraceful to release like one video every like 3 months or so. That's just disgusting behavior. How can I call myself a YouTuber? I don't know, but whatever, we will be fine, guys. Don't worry too much about it. I'll be here until the next time. I hope you will be back also. Bye bye.